heart. It's filled with darkness. You must fill its heart with light. Don't mind him. He's Mr. Scratch. Your friends will meet him when you're gone. Use the clicker.
Alan Wake, one of my favorite games of all time ever since I first played it back in 2012, running at 15 FPS on my poor computer. It became an obsession that drove me to write and draw and daydream about everything Alan Wake related. To this day, it's a wonderful game. It has a wonderful story, wonderful setting, incredible characters. Then I found out about Alan Wake's American Nightmare. And of course, about him.
Is this on? How can you tell?
Mr. Scratch had already been presented in the first game in a somber, dark quote, "Your friends will meet him when you're gone." He's also mentioned in the DLC The Writer, where Alan asks Zane whether they're the same person.
No.
But he was truly fleshed out in the so-called spin-off, now confirmed not to be a spin-off at all, and talk about a glow-up. American Nightmare is a small game. It's a loop, which is really fun to think about after playing Alan Wake 2. But despite the game's length, it delivers a great characterization of its main villain.
I'll catch you eventually!
Maybe. But what are you gonna do then? By then, I'll have had my hands on everything you love.
Mr. Scratch is Alan Wake's evil doppelganger, as stated in the very first cutscene. In this game, it's explained that after Alan's disappearance, all the rumors about him and what happened to him fueled Cauldron Lake, which in turn shaped reality and made this distorted Alan Wake real. While our Alan is stuck in the dark place, still desperately trying to escape, Scratch is already out, with a body of his own, tormenting Alan's loved ones and killing people just for the sake of it. And to torment poor Alan too, of course. But you see, this is where it gets interesting. Scratch isn't just going around murdering everyone like a mindless killing machine. The thing about him is, he loves what he does.
I take pride in what I do.
For him, it is fun. It's thrilling. He takes his time choosing his weapon, always using physical tools, contrary to his dark powers, simply because it adds to the excitement. Scratch also seems obsessed with the idea of having a life of his own.
You've been up to something, haven't you? Too bad it's not gonna do any good. I'm a better you than you ever will be, and I've got all the time in the world. Everything you've got's going to be mine. Your life. Your wife!
He's taking over Alan's life and indulging in it, doing the things Alan never had the balls to go for, as said by him in one of the cutscenes. He's going to parties. He's dancing. He's taking people to his room. He's murdering people in his room, but he's taking sweet time doing it. Because again, it's fun. Yeah, he's a psychopath. Eventually, of course, we catch up to him. Mr. Scratch is dangerous and very powerful, but you know what else he is? He's cocky as hell.
I'm just as real as you are. And I'm the improved version. No fears, no doubt, no weaknesses, no self-deception here. I don't let anything drag me down.
With him being so powerful, shouldn't he be more cautious? That's the thing that made him so special to me. Mr. Scratch loses because of his ego. It's the very thing that pulls him down, that makes him weak, because he's more worried about showing off and playing with Alan's emotions than actually winning. And that does wonders for a character. For comparison, the Taken are awesome as they are, but they're just uncontrollable creatures that speak gibberish, driven by anger and madness and hate, and with distorted voices. That's a Taken, no longer a human, just a creature. But not a dark presence. Think about Barbara Jagger, for instance. She doesn't have a distorted voice. She's not bleeding darkness all the time. She speaks in a calm and cold manner and keeps the appearance of an actual human to interact with people. Because she's better than a mindless monster, she has a consciousness. She has power, too much power. And she uses that power to bring about her deeds. It separates her from the Taken. It makes her their master. Mr. Scratch works the same way here. He speaks in a calm manner. He thinks and plans things and uses these things to fool our protagonist. He has Alan's voice, not a distorted one. Again, this separates him from the Taken. And if you already finished Alan Wake 2, you know exactly where I'm going with this. But back to American Nightmare for now. Mr. Scratch isn't the Dark Presence, however, but something created out of the rumors about Wake. So he's not as powerful as it is, but he's still very powerful. And thus comes his title.
The Herald of Darkness.
Herald of Darkness. Not darkness itself, just a messenger of it. A purely evil messenger.
Purely evil? Thank you, sir. But I'm just what people want me to be.
You already faced the real Dark Presence before. We defeated it. But now there's this guy dude thing who has a mind of its own and works for something stronger than him. That established lore felt ominous. It set up a nice path for a sequel and raised some questions like, what is he the messenger of exactly? Will he already be in Bright Falls when Alan goes back? How did his actions impact the way people see Alan in the real world? How much damage will he be able to truly cause if let loose once again?
This story will eat you alive. This story is a monster.
When Alan Wake 2 was announced, I lost my shit. Over a decade of waiting for this game, of dreaming about a sequel, and now it's finally here. I had so many theories of how it'd go. We saw in the trailers that Scratch would be a major character, and oh, I was so excited. My favorite antagonist ever? To his full potential? Let's go! I had so many things in mind. What would he be like? What would happen to the real world? Would Alan finally get the ending he deserved and get out of the dark place? All these questions are answered now. And honestly, I'm not too happy about all of them. So, what happened? Well, a lot. It was brilliant, breathtaking even. But I'm here to talk about Scratch. And my very first problem with him came very early on, right after Alan is rescued when he says this.
Mr. Scratch? Or is it the Dark Presence?
Both. It's interchangeable. He's Scratch when he looks like me, but he can change into this other form.
Okay, so this is the very beginning. It's still odd. Scratch shouldn't be the same as the Dark Presence. We saw that even back in Alan Wake 1. He's standing right next to Wake, far away from Barbara. He's his own thing. She's her own thing. So, what's this all about them being interchangeable? And wait a minute, there's something else here. Why can't everyone pronounce the word Scratch now all of a sudden? Another thing that I loved about him was the fact that not even Zane could say his name out loud.
Don't mind him. He's Mr. Scratch.
Known only as Mr. Scratch.
Zane is, what, the most powerful light entity we have? And not even he can pronounce this guy's name? It added so much to his lore. A creature so dark, so twisted, and cruel, that his name can be pronounced except by Alan, his original face per se. But now his name is just thrown around like it means nothing. Huh. So I kept playing and reached the best part of the game, the Within chapter. And it was here that I thought, oh, okay, we're back on the right track. The Herald of Darkness, yes, the very same titles from American Nightmare, further proving my point that they're in the same logic as the prior game. Maybe Alan was just confused back then. They're not the same thing. Good. Great. You know what's even greater? This part.
The Prince of fucking Darkness is making a comeback.
Does Prince of Darkness refer to Scratch?
This really got to me. A Prince of Darkness implies there's a king or a Queen of Darkness, so he's not the absolute power here. This means that just as it was established before, he's not the Dark Presence. He's something else, with a mind of his own. So, with all of this in mind, all this info in the game, it was finally time to meet the guy.
Don't fucking give it to him! He's a fucking monster, Saga! There it is! We've been waiting for you, motherfucker! I'm gonna fucking destroy you!
Listen. Listen. When this scene happened, I was losing my mind. It is so good. There were already hints that Alan was being possessed, but to see it happen right in front of my eyes was like, hell yeah. Also, look at my son. What does he do right after killing poor Yako? Well, he takes his jacket, of course. Scratch is all about this. Style. Looking good, doing a good job while having fun. But then he spoke, and I wasn't expecting that voice at all. Barbara's voice wasn't like this, nor was his own before, like I said. But that's alright. It's his very first scene. He's pissed off, angry out of his mind. I can't accept that. Sounded demonic because he's angry as hell. Okay. So we defeat him, and Alan disappears. The story continues, and I'm already questioning things. Why doesn't he have a body of his own, after all? Don't get me wrong, him possessing Alan is awesome. In fact, I even wrote a fanfiction with the same idea back in 2013. It's really cool to play around with. But the implications of him not having his own body are that he is the Dark Presence, like Alan said before, which goes against everything else the game has told us so far. So now I'm freaking out. What is he? Please don't make him just an entity that goes around possessing people. He's so much more than that. He can be so much more than that. And they do exactly what I wish they didn't. Once he's out of Wake, he goes into Casey, and then back to Alan again. And then he's killed. The end. So what was that? Why was that? Where's that funky killer guy who enjoyed toying with his victims, that enjoyed telling them how they'd lose? I'm not saying they shouldn't make him more evil and threatening, not at all. In fact, the parts where there's writing on the walls, like everything covered in blood, it was so terrifying, it actually made me scared. I liked this new side of him. But they didn't need to completely erase the other side. Like, imagine if the second time we saw him, instead of him just popping up, he came back with a smile, speaking calmly, using Alan's voice, a reminder that Alan is still there, making us question whether we're hurting Scratch or Alan himself. Imagine if he attacks the old gods, plays mind games with them, threatens them with the possibility that they will fail, and then he starts attacking Saga, laughing and teasing her all the time about her dead daughter, about how she failed to protect Wake, about how she failed to do her job. This is the Scratch that I wanted to see. He doesn't need to be composed all the time, but after going wild before, having him come back fully composed, clean, and overconfident would add a sense of depth to him. Because this time, he actually wins. His ego doesn't destroy him, it empowers him. He could even rub that in Saga's face when he escapes the containment. Did you really think this is what it would take to stop me? The stage was perfectly laid out for him to be a second big bad. But now that he is the Dark Presence, they just turn him into this vicious monster that goes around using physical tools instead of using his dark powers, which in turn doesn't fit with the Dark Presence. Barbara Jagger never got physical because why the hell would she? She's got all the dark powers under her control. Let the Taken do the dirty work. But Mr. Scratch, he likes doing the dirty work. He likes killing people without using darkness because it's fucking fun for him. But now they're suddenly the same, and all that character building is thrown out of the window right into the lake. Like, come on, I can't be the only one frustrated by this. Especially after the most epic battle ever, with the old gods bringing down their paranatural powers while they sing. This has got to be the best moment in the game, challenged only by the We Sing chapter, but what comes after is just a shit show. Then we're back to the Dark Place, and why isn't he actively hunting us down? I don't mean it like a Nemesis character, no. I just mean that for someone who finally has the clicker, he doesn't do much to stop Alan at all. He already pressed the goddamn thing. Why isn't he more of a threat? And then they kill him, in the most anticlimactic way ever. So the dude shows up once, fights us, then shows up again, fights us, and then just follows us around as this dark cloud, and then is freaking killed. After possessing Wake again? I mean, what the fuck? I posted my thoughts already on Reddit, and some people present a very good point about why he's so different here. Because the story is a horror story. So he's different because he adapts to what the story needs and wants. Another person also said that because Alan sees him as a dark presence this time, he probably wrote about it, and thus, that became true, and they become one. And, you know, even though this makes sense, I personally don't really like it. You know what stings the most? Is that his very theme song is not only a banger, but it also displays a much better version of him. It is even fun to listen to, because to me, the music kind of puts both sides of Scratch together. In the first part of the song, there's that edgier, cockier version of Scratch, the one who likes to fool around and tell people how good he is. Then in the chorus, the most serious and threatening version of him comes out. Calmer, but just as dangerous, if not more. Take a listen. Tell me what you think.
Stay on my crown, fit together like the shot I'm the sickness of this town. I'm the ants inside your walls. The quiet knocking on your door. It's not your story to write. Scratch out your words in the night. When the writer is in doubt, I turn to come out.
So yeah, a theme song has a better character than the one we see in the game. That's so freaking sad. I really don't understand what happened here. He had so much potential. He was so much fun. Ever notice how in almost every fan art or fanfiction since American Nightmare came out, people depict him smiling, grinning, being a son of a bitch with style? That's so good. You can tell how insane he is, doing horrific things while laughing about it. In here he smiles, I don't know, 2 times, in a very quick frame of his jump scare, and then in Saga's Mind Place, which by the way is awesome. Right here I can see his personality shine again. He's toying with her, taking pleasure in knowing he's much better than she is. Also, where's his laugh, man? It is so iconic, so much that in the cult video they released, we could hear him laughing at the very start. But in the game itself, he's nothing. Just another Taken, killing for killing and growling all the time. Now, let me make this clear. Alan Wake 2 is my game of the year. The ideas in it are brilliant. The setting, the visuals, the characters, the mechanics, like holy shit. Instantly changing reality as Alan made me go woo every single time. But just because I love the game doesn't mean I can't criticize it, especially when it comes to my favorite character, who I've been waiting to see for ages, and just turned out to be a major disappointment. At the end of the day, this is just my opinion. It's how I view the character, and my feelings toward it. If you disagree with me, that's okay. Feel free to comment below. We can have a nice chat and a healthy conversation about it. Alan Wake is a complex game, and it spurred many theories over the years. Alan Wake 2 is the same, a game that begs us to theorize, to think, to wonder. But for me, right now, all I want is for them to bring Scratch back in Alan Wake 3. Not this Scratch though, the real thing. The one I fell in love with.
Mr. Scratch!